I'm Brian from A Fairly Normal Vegan Couple, and a lot of people have asked us why we specifically talk about no oil when we post our recipes and whatnot. So, when I first became a vegan, I definitely was not no oil. We were eating a lot of mock meats that had a fair amount of oil in them, palm oil, vegetable oils. And honestly, I put a lot of olive oil on my salads. I cooked in olive oil. I used a lot of coconut oil. And I never really considered that there was anything wrong with that. In fact, I'd read quite the opposite, that these oils were healthy. I mean, everybody talks about the Mediterranean diet, how healthy that is, and a big component of that is extra virgin olive oil. But the more I looked into it, the more I realized that maybe all was not what it seemed with oils in general. First of all, both my wife and I, despite being on a primarily whole foods plant-based diet, we were both overweight and we were not losing that weight. We would exercise like crazy, we would do calorie restriction, but we were not shedding the pounds. So I ran across some vegan YouTubers who were doing whole foods plant-based but without any oil. And I thought, you know what? It's the one thing that I haven't tried. Let me give it a shot. My wife decided to give it a shot as well. And I tell you, the results were mind-blowing. Literally, within weeks, the weight started melting off of us. So Dr. McDougall, he's a big fan of a saying that the fat you eat is the fat you'll wear. And, you know, I always kind of poo-pooed that a little bit. I didn't give it a whole lot of value. But I'll tell you what, both of us were wearing far more fat than we wanted to. And when we stopped eating oil, it literally is the first time that we started easily shedding the extra pounds. Now, that's why I originally did it. It was a weight loss aspect of it. But the more I looked into it, the more I discovered that there's some unsavory aspects about oil that you don't always hear about. So for example, everybody talks about how healthy the Mediterranean diet is, and that's in big part because of the olive oil. But the fact is, when you really look at the research, the Mediterranean diet is healthy despite the olive oil. Dr. Greger goes into this in great detail in his videos and the things that he writes about. But when they really parsed out the data, they discovered that even the olive oil has negative effects on people's health. First of all, olive oil, just like any other oil, has a detrimental impact on the linings of the artery walls, restricting blood flow. So when they add high fat or high oil foods to what a person eats at a meal, it compromises blood flow for up to 6 hours after you eat it. Extra virgin olive oil does have some beneficial plant compounds in them, the polyphenols and antioxidants and whatnot. But the fact is, you can get those a whole lot easier by just eating a salad. You don't have to have extra virgin olive oil to get those. Another very interesting thing that I discovered was I was listening to a Joel Furman interview with Chef AJ the other day. And he talked about how whole foods convert to calories at a rate of about 1 to 2 calories per minute. So as our bodies start breaking that food down into calories, that's how quickly they go into the bloodstream. So 1 to 2 calories per minute. Oil, on the other hand, gets dumped into the blood system at a rate of about 40 to 60 calories per minute. And what they discovered is that when that occurs, dopamine floods the dopamine receptors in the brain in the same way that other addictive substances flood the dopamine receptors. So things like sugar, cocaine, gambling, thrill-seeking. The reason those things are addictive is because they flood the dopamine receptors with dopamine and cause this addictive response. You become addicted to them. You become addicted to that feeling. And, you know, I never thought about oil being an addictive substance, but if you think about it, it kind of is. I have health coached people who had a really tough time breaking that that addiction to fatty, oily foods, and this actually kind of explains it for me. So oil really does not add a whole lot to your diet. It's a whole lot of calories that doesn't do a whole lot for your meal. I mean, honestly, yeah, when I first cut oil out of my diet, it felt a little weird because I was used to the mouthfeel of it. The food sitting in my stomach kind of depended on, in other words, I didn't feel right when I didn't have a bunch of olive oil on my salad or, as part of my meal. So when I removed oil from my diet, yeah, it felt a little different. I mean, it wasn't horribly uncomfortable, but it took about a week to get used to. But after that, honestly, I didn't even miss it. And the fact is, olive oil, according to the research, does not make food any more satiating, which really just means satisfying and keeps you filled, keeps you from being hungry. It really doesn't add any of that to your meal. And furthermore, the experiments that they did showed that people who added olive oil to their salads ahead of their meal ended up eating 300 calories more at that meal. So it's a lot of unnecessary calories. It causes you to eat more food than you probably would have. It impairs arterial blood flow. It has a bit of an addictive component to it. And if you remove it, you might just find you shed a whole lot of weight. So those are the reasons that we have given up olive oil, have not missed it, and plan to continue doing so.